Today I'm going to be showing off my Scorching Fist Amon build for UVH6. So my idea here was to combine the best aspects of Share White build, of Forge build, and of general mantra / melee build for Amon to create what possibly could be one of the best bossing damage and mobbing damage in the entire game. So the main weapon for this build is going to be a mantra, which shoots melee damage alongside gun and splash damage. For mobbing, you're going to want to find the Ricochet Jacobs version to ricochet projectiles onto other enemies. And for bossing, you're going to want to find the fully automatic Ripper Mag. The specific reason why mantra is so important is because of some of his skills that are reliant on dealing melee damage. For example, we have the Fist of Stone. When we deal melee damage, we restore the percentage of Forge skill cooldown. Because Forge skill is a huge part of us getting the large bonus from Berserk, we want to have as much uptime on our Forge skill as possible. In addition to that, we want to proc our kill skills if we're doing, for example, bossing. So whenever we deal melee damage, we activate kill skills with 24% chance, using my Touch's Death. Plus, when we do melee damage, we also gain overshield, so we are able to keep the amp on What's for Dinner for the entire duration of the fight. Starting off with the red tree, we go into critical hit chance on melee damage. That's going to be useful for mantra. We go into more melee and skill damage. We get 1 point into best defense, so we are able to keep up our overshield for What's for Dinner. We grab 1 into gut punch, so we are able to weaken enemies on hit when we're doing melee damage. Then we go 1 point into Forged in Steel. It's very useful in bossing, since if you throw out the Forge skill, the enemies won't be able to damage you for 6 seconds. And if you chain the Forge skills, you can basically stay invulnerable for the whole time. And for last, we put 2 points into Bulletstorm so that we can move down the tree. Now, moving down the tree, we have Berserk. This is our main damage skill. It allows us to get bonus credit damage with gun damage and melee damage if we use our Forge skill. With mantra specifically, because it benefits from both damage sources, we actually get plus 60% bonus credit damage. Next, this is our kill skill, where if we kill the enemy while Berserk is active, we extend its duration and also increase the potency of the Berserk buff up to 600%. And the ability that lets us keep up that bonus Berserk damage is my Touch's Death. As previously discussed, we activate all of our kill skills when we do melee damage with a certain percentage. That means if we just activate our Berserk and then start shooting with our mantra, we are able to have maximum increased bonus damage, and we are able to have infinite uptime on our Berserk buff through There Is Only Red. And then we threw in some points to Brimming Vigor just so we can move down the tree and get my Touch's Death. On the right side, we have Catastrophe. Whenever we apply Shock, we get increased crit chance. When we apply Burning, we get critical hit damage. Later down the tree, we're going to have the Electrical Fire, which basically allows us to proc both of these buffs. So this becomes a very big chunk of damage when we are bossing or mobbing. And for the last, we have Fists of Stone. Whenever we do melee damage, we get Forge skill cooldown. Again, with mantra, we shoot melee damage, and therefore we are able to always have our Forge skill to do Berserk and to get invulnerability. Next, for our augments and capstones, we have Force of Nature. Whenever we deal gun damage, when our action skill is active, it gets stored on the enemy, and then when we use our Forge skill on the enemy, they detonate for 100% of the gun damage dealt. This one is really good for when you're doing status effect build for a Forge class mod, but it's also immensely helpful in stacking damage for a Groundbreaker specialization that we will go over a bit later. For the capstones, we have Stormcutter. When we throw it out, we basically restore the duration for the action skill, and whenever we don't have the action skill active, we get decreased cooldown for our ordnance and for our action skill. So this one is immensely useful for essentially having infinite uptime on our action skill. Now moving to the green tree, because of the increased level cap, we are able to invest more points into this so we can get to Raging Inferno, which is also a huge part of our damage output. But let's start off with Gathering Storm. This is once again a kill skill, so we get plus 45% elemental damage in total, which we do constantly because Mantra is elemental, and Berserk bonus damage is also elemental, and Force of Nature is also elemental fire detonations. So we shoot our Mantra and we always have the max stack of Gathering Storm. Now we go into Executioner, where we deal increased crit hit damage, and this effect is doubled to 40% after we deal melee damage. So again, perfect synergy with the Mantra. And for the last of our kill skills, we have Vital Organs, where we get critical hit chance with guns when as a action skill. So once again, we have the Might Touches Death, so we have even more crit hit chance on our Mantra and the rest of our abilities. And for the last 5 points, we go into Raging Inferno, where we get critical hit chance, and whenever our action skill critically hits, we get burn damage that is equal to the 60% of damage dealt per second. So if we are able to stack up the detonations and then use our Forge skill, and if it manages to proc when it does the detonation or when it does the actual slash from the Stormcutter, we can do insane amounts of burn damage, especially to enemies weak to fire. This ability is specifically really good against Bloom Reaper. It basically melts him with one Forge skill use. Now for our specializations, we go 20 points into Really of This, so we have even more gun damage for our Mantra. We go 20 points into Runner, so we can get the Groundbreaker, which basically stores most of our damage, including the Berserk and Force of Nature detonations, so we can have a very powerful melee attack at the end of 5 seconds. For the last 20 points, we go into Daredevil, where we get I Am a Gun. This one is really important for Berserk and Force of Nature because both of these count as skill damage, and the more gun damage you have, the more potent these abilities become, and they are a huge chunk of our burst damage on Amon. Also, for the final specialization, we go into CQC, so whenever we deal melee damage, we get even more fire rate, so we are able to shoot even more Mantra shots. So for our firmware, we go 3 out of 3 into Skillcraft, which is pretty standard for this build, where we get skill damage, we get skill critical chance, and we also get stacking skill damage. And for the last, we go into Real Big Fist. We only take 2 points because we don't really need a Nova Explosion because it doesn't really deal that much damage, and we would rather have 3 points into Skillcraft. So here we get plus 50 additional melee damage for our Mantra. So for the rest of our gear, we have a rep kit. This is an order rep kit with both elemental affinity and hard hitter, so we are able to squeeze out even more damage from elemental damage and from melee damage on our Mantra. Then we have Vivisecting Throwing Knife. We use this for bossing specifically, so we can have guaranteed crit on bosses, and we also get additional amp of 15% damage. Next, very important, we have a Cyber Class mod. The Amon doesn't really have a lot of ways to restore his ammo except for his blue tree, and because we really would not have enough points to spec into Primal Surge without losing a lot of damage, we just get the Cyber Class mod, and this ability is really important because the damage window where you're able to stack up damage for Groundbreaker is very short. It's only 5 seconds, so if we have an ability that restores ammo, we can just keep shooting and shooting, stacking and stacking damage with Mantra, so we can have even better procs of Groundbreaker. Ideally, you would need at least 3 points into the Primal Surge, so you are able to consistently restore ammo, and also I managed to get plus 60 action skill damage, which again goes into the Force of Nature, into our Berserk, and into the rest of our skills. Then for the shield, we have What's for Dinner, so we get shock damage, so we are able to proc Catastrophe right here. And we also get amp damage on every Mantra shot because we are able to restore our Overshield with, let me see the skill, with the best defense. And for last, we have enhancements. We can use both Jacobs. This one is more for mobbing or for crystal phase. And we have a Ripper one. Ripper is more specialized for single target because it gives us more damage potential through high roller. But Jacobs is also pretty good. One important thing to mention is that you need to make sure that either of these enhancements has a shotgun max size or just gun max size, because Mantra usually chews through ammo. It only has 13 as a default stat, so we need to make sure that we have a lot of ammo capacity on our Mantra. Berserk is not only able to give us bonus damage on our guns and our melee damage, but is also able to proc on the Groundbreaker. So here we have a shooting range, we throw our forge skill, we get bonus cryo damage, we start shooting the enemy. Let me proc the forge skill again to stack the detonation, and as you can see, we both have a Groundbreaker kinetic damage, and we have Berserk amplified damage of a cryo in the form of 10.3 million damage. So this is how the gameplay loop usually looks like. As you can see, we have our forge skill, we throw it out, and we get our action skill up, and then we just start shooting with our Mantra. We start stacking damage further and further. Then after like 4 seconds, we throw our forge skill so we can cause detonation to stack up action skill damage. And then we just get the hit with the fist, and we get a lot of additional damage from Groundbreaker and Berserk. In addition to that, we get a lot of DOT effects from both Electrical Fire and from Scorching Inferno. As you can see, we're hitting for 6.3 million for 1.2 million burn damage, and this can also dip into our shock damage, so we get even more DOT from Electrical Fire. When you're doing general mobbing, it is recommended that you switch to Slippy, so you're able to deal with Ordinite or Vile enemies, so you can destroy their crystals with the immense splash and melee damage that we get from our Slippy. Very last thing to mention is the Groundbreaker also benefits from action skill damage and from melee damage, such as the other of Amon's skills. Once again, if I got any of the info wrong on the damage scaling and skills, let me know in the comments below. And this is about it for the build. Thank you for watching and have a good one.